Hey everyone, and welcome back to Real World English. I'm Emma.
And I'm Jake. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
So today we're going to dive into something that, well, honestly, it's something a lot of English learners ask us about all the time.
Yeah, exactly. How to speak like a native English speaker.
Right. And, it's funny because when people ask us this question, I think they sometimes expect like some magic formula or something.
Oh, totally. Like there's gonna be some secret trick that'll make them sound American or British overnight.
Exactly. But the truth is, it's really more about understanding the little things, the stuff that native speakers do naturally without even thinking about it.
Yeah, the details that make conversation flow naturally. So today, we're gonna break down some of these, what would you call them? Natural speech patterns.
Perfect. Natural speech patterns. And we're going to keep it super practical, right? Like stuff you can actually start using in your conversations today.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Emma, what do you think is like the first thing that makes someone sound more natural when they speak English?
Oh, that's easy. Contractions. Like, this is huge, Jake. Instead of saying, I am going to the store, native speakers almost always say, I'm going to go to the store.
Right.
And it's not just the obvious ones like I'm and you're. It's also things like gonna instead of going to, wanna instead of want to, coulda instead of could have.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? A lot of English learners actually know these contractions, but they're afraid to use them because they think it's too informal or something.
And you know what else is interesting about contractions? Different regions actually have their own preferences. Like in the South, you might hear y'all instead of you all, and that's completely normal there.
Oh my gosh, yes. But here's the thing. Even in business meetings, even in presentations, native speakers use contractions. It doesn't make you sound less professional.
Oh, yeah, and in some parts of the UK, they say I haven't, where Americans might say I don't have. Same meaning, just different contractions. It's all about what sounds natural in your area. Exactly. It just makes you sound more human, more natural.
Here is a quick exercise for everyone listening. Try reading a paragraph from any book or article, and then read it again, but this time replace every going to with gonna, every want to with wanna, and use contractions like I'm instead of I am. Notice how different it sounds? Right. So if you're listening and you've been avoiding contractions, start using them, like today. Your English will immediately sound more native-like.
That's such a good exercise. And you know what? Record yourself doing it. Listen to the formal version, then listen to the version with contractions. You'll hear immediately how much more natural and conversational the second one sounds. Now, speaking of sounding natural, Emma, what about those little words and sounds that we make when we're thinking? Like and
Oh, the filler words. Yeah, this is actually really important, and it's something that a lot of textbooks don't teach.
Right.
Native speakers use filler words all the time, like you know, like, well, I mean, these aren't mistakes. They're actually a natural part of how we speak.
Exactly, and they serve a purpose, right? Like they give you time to think, and they also signal to the other person that you're not finished talking yet.
Yeah, so if someone asks you a question and you need a second to think, instead of just staying silent, you might say, well, let me think about that for a second.
Right, or, that's a really good question. It keeps the conversation flowing.
Exactly. But here's the key. You don't want to overdo it. Like, you don't want every sentence to be, I think that,
Oh, totally. That would sound unnatural too.
Right. It's about balance. Use them when you naturally need them, but don't force them into every sentence.
And speaking of balance, let's talk about something that I think is even more important than the words you choose. Emma, what about the music of English? intonation and rhythm.
And speaking of filler words, here's something interesting. Different generations and regions actually use different fillers. Like younger people might say like more often, while older speakers might use you know or well. Oh, yes, the music of English. I love that you put it that way because that's exactly what it is. English has a rhythm, you know?
That's so true. And in some places, you'll hear things like right at the end of sentences or you see in the middle. It's like each community has its own way of filling those thinking pauses. Mm-hmm.
Here's something else about filler words that's really useful to understand. They can actually change the tone of what you're saying. Like, well, I suppose you're right, sounds more hesitant than just, I suppose you're right. Like, we don't stress every word equally. Some words are strong, some are weak. And the pattern creates this musical flow.
Exactly. And I mean often introduces a clarification or correction. Like, the movie was good. I mean, it wasn't great, but it was enjoyable. It signals that you're about to refine what you just said. Right. And this is probably one of the hardest things for learners to master because, well, every language has its own rhythm, right?
Exactly. So if your first language is, let's say, Spanish or French, the rhythm is completely different. You have to kind of retrain your ear.
Yeah, so how can people work on this? Like, what's a practical way to improve your English rhythm?
Well, I always tell people to listen to podcasts, watch movies, listen to music, but don't just listen passively. Really pay attention to the rhythm.
Right.
And then, this might sound silly, but try to copy it. Like, pick a short sentence from a movie or a podcast and repeat it over and over, trying to match the exact rhythm and intonation.
That's actually a great exercise. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I did something similar. I'd listen to the same sentence like 20 times and just try to copy every little detail.
And here's a specific technique for working on rhythm. Try clapping along with sentences as you hear them. Native English follows a pattern. Stressed words get claps, unstressed words don't. It's like da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Exactly. And with English, you really want to pay attention to which words get stressed. Like in the sentence, I didn't say he stole the money. You can change the meaning completely just by which word you emphasize.
Oh, I love that. It's like finding the heartbeat of English. And once you feel that rhythm, you can start to predict where the stress will fall in new sentences, even before you hear them. Oh, that's such a good example. If you stress I, it means someone else said it. If you stress he, it means someone else stole it.
Right. And here's something really helpful to know. In English, we usually stress content words like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. But we typically don't stress function words like the, is, to, at. So, the cat is sleeping on the sofa. Right. So word stress is huge, and sentence stress too. You know, Jake, what about those expressions that native speakers use all the time, like idioms and phrasal verbs?
Perfect example. And this is why when you stress the wrong words, it can sound really strange to native speakers. Like if you said, the cat is sleeping on the sofa, it would sound very unnatural, even though all the words are correct. Oh man, yeah, this is where things get really interesting because, textbook English and real English can be pretty different sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like instead of saying I understand, most native speakers would say I get it. Instead of I'm very tired, we might say I'm beat or I'm wiped out.
Yes, and these aren't slang exactly. They're just how we naturally talk. Like hang out instead of spend time together. Figure out instead of solve or discover.
Exactly. And the thing is, if you only use textbook vocabulary, you'll sound like a textbook.
Let me give you a few more super common ones that native speakers use constantly. Instead of postpone, we say put off. Instead of tolerate, we say put up with. Instead of investigate, we say look into. These are everywhere in daily conversation. Right, which is technically correct, but it doesn't sound natural. So how can people learn these more natural expressions?
And here are some that might surprise English learners. Come across instead of find by accident. Run into instead of meet unexpectedly. Bring up instead of mention. I bet most people learning English have never seen these in their textbooks. Well, I think the best way is through exposure. Like when you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast and you hear an expression you don't know, write it down.
And here's the tricky thing about phrasal verbs. You often can't guess the meaning from the individual words, like break up has nothing to do with literally breaking something. It means to end a relationship or to separate into pieces. Yeah, and look up what it means, but more importantly, pay attention to how it's used. Like, what's the context? What's the situation?
Right. Or pick up can mean so many different things. Pick up an object, pick up a skill, pick up someone in a car, pick up the pace. The same two words, completely different meanings depending on context.
Right, because a lot of these expressions are very context specific. You wouldn't use the same expression in a business meeting that you'd use when you're hanging out with friends.
Exactly, and that brings us to something else that's super important. What would you call it? Connecting your words smoothly?
Oh, you mean like linking and reduction?
Yes, exactly. Native speakers don't usually pronounce each word separately. They connect words together, and they often reduce or drop certain sounds.
Right. So instead of what are you doing, it sounds more like what you doing. The words flow together.
Perfect example. And this happens all the time. Like, did you eat becomes did you eat. Wanna go becomes wanna go.
And you know what's interesting? A lot of English learners understand this when they hear it, but they're afraid to do it themselves because they think it's wrong.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not wrong at all. It's just natural speech. Even in professional situations, native speakers link their words together.
Exactly. So if you want to sound more natural, you need to practice connecting your words. Start with simple phrases and work your way up.
Right. And Jake, here's something that I think is really important but doesn't get talked about enough: cultural references. Jake, you know what I think we should talk about? Some of the most common mistakes that even advanced English learners make. Because sometimes it's not about what you should do, but what you should avoid doing.
Oh, yes, this is huge. Native speakers make references to movies, TV shows, music, historical events all the time. Oh, that's such a good point. Because I've noticed that some mistakes actually make you sound less natural, even when your grammar and vocabulary are perfect, like overpronouncing every single word.
Right. Like someone might say, that's so 5 minutes ago, or don't have a cow, or that's not rocket science. These come from pop culture, and they're part of how native speakers communicate. Exactly. Native speakers are naturally lazy with their pronunciation in casual speech. We don't say, how are you, with perfect diction. It comes out more like, how you doing? And that's not sloppy, that's just normal.
Exactly. And if you don't understand these references, you might miss part of what someone is trying to say, or you might not get the humor or the context. Another mistake I notice is using overly formal language in casual situations, like saying, I am going to purchase some groceries, instead of, I'm gonna buy some groceries. Both are correct, but one sounds natural and one sounds robotic.
Right. So my advice is watch American or British TV shows and movies, not just for language practice, but to understand the culture. And here's a big one. giving complete sentence answers when native speakers would use shorter responses. Like if someone asks, "Did you like the movie?" You don't need to say, "Yes, I liked the movie very much." Just, "Yeah, it was great," or even "loved it." And let's talk about some specific types of cultural references that come up constantly. Sports metaphors are huge in American English, like "that's a home run idea," or "we're in the final stretch," or "let's touch base next week."
Yeah, and follow current events too. Like read news articles, follow social media. You want to know what people are talking about. Sports metaphors are everywhere. Even people who don't follow sports use them. Strike out, meaning to fail. Ballpark figure, meaning an estimate. Out of left field, meaning unexpected. These are just part of everyday business English now. Right. Conversation is like a dance, you know? It should flow back and forth quickly. Long, complete answers can actually slow down that natural rhythm and make the other person feel like they're interviewing you instead of chatting with you.
And then there are the movie and TV show references. Like people might say, "May the Force be with you" from Star Wars, or "I'll be back" from Terminator, or "That's what she said" from The Office. These quotes have become part of the language. Exactly, because language and culture they're really connected. You can't separate them.
And the references change with generations too. Millennials might say, "That's so fetch" from Mean Girls, while Gen Z might reference TikTok trends. Older generations might reference classic TV shows like Friends or Seinfeld. It's like each age group has its own cultural language.
You know, Jake, there's something we haven't talked about yet that's really important for sounding natural, and that's nonverbal communication. Your body language and gestures can actually affect how natural your English sounds. Jake, let's talk about something that I think is really challenging for English learners: dealing with fast speech and understanding native speakers when they're talking at normal speed. Because in real life, people don't slow down for you.
Now, Emma, there's one more thing I want to talk about, and I think this might be the most important one. What about thinking in English? This is so important. And you know what? Even advanced learners struggle with this. You might be able to understand every word when someone speaks slowly and clearly, but put those same words at natural speed with connected speech, and suddenly it's like a different language. Oh, wow. Yes. I never really thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Like, if your body language doesn't match the cultural expectations, people might notice something feels off, even if your English is perfect.
Right, so here's a technique I always recommend. Start with content you're familiar with, like watch movies you've already seen but in English. Since you know the story, you can focus on catching the speech patterns instead of trying to follow the plot. Oh my gosh, yes, this is the game changer. When you can think in English instead of translating from your native language, everything becomes so much more natural.
That's brilliant. And here's another tip. Use English subtitles, not subtitles in your native language. That way, you're training your ear while also seeing how the fast speech connects to the written words. It's like connecting the dots between sound and spelling.
Exactly. Like Americans tend to use more hand gestures when they speak. We nod a lot to show we're listening. We make more eye contact during conversation. And our facial expressions are usually pretty animated, especially when we're telling stories. And here's something else that's really important: getting used to different accents. American, British, Australian, Canadian, South African, they all have their own patterns and pronunciations. You need to train your ear for variety.
Right, because when you're translating, there's always going to be a delay, and your sentence structure might sound, well, it might sound a little off. And even within countries, like someone from New York sounds different from someone from Texas, who sounds different from someone from California. And that's totally normal. You don't need to understand every accent perfectly, but exposure helps. And this varies by culture, right? Like some cultures consider a lot of eye contact rude, but in American English speaking context, too little eye contact might make you seem uninterested or even untrustworthy, even though that's totally not your intention.
Exactly. Plus, some ideas just, they don't translate directly. Like the way you express something in English might be completely different from your native language.
So, how can people work on thinking in English? Because I know this is something that, well, it doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't, but there are things you can do. Like start by narrating your daily activities in English in your head, you know?
Oh, that's a great idea. Like, I'm making coffee, I'm putting on my shoes, I'm walking to the bus stop.
Exactly. And then as you get more comfortable, you can start having conversations with yourself, like imagining what you would say in different situations.
Right. Like, what would I say if someone asked me about my weekend? Or how would I explain this problem to my boss?
Another great exercise for thinking in English is changing the language of your internal monologue during specific activities. Like when you're cooking, try to think all your thoughts in English. Now I need to chop the onions. The pan is getting hot. I should add some salt. Yes. And over time, this becomes automatic. You stop translating and start just speaking English naturally.
I love that idea. And you can gradually increase the complexity. Start with simple activities like making coffee, then move to more complex things like planning your day or thinking through a work problem. The key is making it a habit. And you know what? When that happens, that's when you really start to sound like a native speaker. Because you're not just using English words, you're thinking like an English speaker.
You know what, Jake? I think we should also talk about the psychological side of sounding natural, because a lot of English learners know all these techniques, but they get nervous and freeze up when they're actually speaking to native speakers. Exactly. So let's recap what we've talked about today because we've covered a lot of ground.
Oh, absolutely. Confidence is such a huge part of sounding natural. When you're worried about making mistakes, you tend to speak more slowly and formally, which actually makes you sound less natural, not more natural.
Now, let's do a comprehensive recap because we've covered so much ground today, and I want to give everyone some specific action steps they can take starting right now.
So first, contractions. Starting tomorrow, pick one formal text, maybe a news article, and rewrite it using contractions. I am becomes I'm, going to becomes gonna, want to becomes wanna. Read both versions out loud and notice the difference. Perfect, because the information is only useful if people actually implement it. So let's go through each point and give concrete steps.
Exactly. So here's what I tell people. Remember that most native speakers are very understanding and patient with English learners. We're not judging every little mistake. We're just happy to communicate with you. The pressure you feel is usually much worse than the reality. Second, filler words. Practice using them strategically. When someone asks you a question, don't jump straight into your answer. Try, well, let me think, or, that's interesting. It buys you thinking time and sounds more conversational.
Right. And here's the thing, even native speakers make mistakes all the time. We stumble over words, we use the wrong verb tense occasionally, we forget what we were saying mid-sentence. Perfect English doesn't actually exist in real conversation. Third, rhythm and intonation. Find the short YouTube video or podcast episode and practice the clapping technique we mentioned. Clap on stressed words only. Then try to copy entire sentences, matching not just the words, but the musical pattern.
Fourth, natural expressions and phrasal verbs. Keep a notebook just for these. When you hear figure out, hang out, run into, write them down with the context, then practice using them in your own sentences until they feel natural.
Fifth, linking and reduction. Practice with common phrases first.
How are you becomes how are ya? What do you think becomes what do you think? Start slow, then speed up as it becomes more natural.
Sixth, cultural knowledge. Spend 15 minutes a day reading entertainment news, following English-speaking social media accounts, or watching popular TV shows, not just for language, but to understand what people are talking about.
Seventh, thinking in English. Start with one activity per day, maybe your morning routine. Narrate everything in English. I'm brushing my teeth. The water is too hot. I need to hurry or I'll be late. Make it a habit.
Perfect. And Jake, I want to say something to our listeners. Don't expect to master all of this overnight. Eighth, avoid common mistakes. Stop over-pronouncing every word and using overly formal language in casual situations. Practice giving shorter, more natural responses instead of complete sentence answers.
Oh, absolutely. This is a process. Even native speakers are always learning and adapting their language.
Ninth, pay attention to nonverbal communication. Work on making appropriate eye contact, using natural gestures, and matching your body language to the cultural context you're in.
Right. So be patient with yourself. Pick one or two things from today's episode and really focus on them for a few weeks. 10th, train your ear for fast, connected speech. Watch familiar movies with English subtitles. Expose yourself to different accents. And don't expect to understand everything immediately. It's a gradual process.
Yeah, like maybe start with contractions and filler words, get comfortable with those, and then move on to the rhythm and intonation. And finally, work on your confidence. Remember that native speakers make mistakes too, and most people are patient and understanding. The goal is communication, not perfection.
Exactly. And remember, the goal isn't to sound exactly like a native speaker from a specific place. The goal is to sound natural and confident.
Right. There are lots of different ways to be a native English speaker. American, British, Australian, Canadian. They all sound different, but they all sound natural.
Perfect point. So find your own natural English voice. Don't try to copy someone else exactly.
All right, everyone. That's going to wrap up today's episode of Real World English. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thanks for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. It really helps other English learners find the show.
And if you have questions about anything we talked about today, or if there's a topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode, send us a message.
Absolutely. We love hearing from you guys. Until next time, keep practicing, stay confident, and remember, you've got this.
See you next time on Real World English.